Did you miss us? Hopefully those 4 hours weren't too long. We're back as the league year opens up here in the NFL. The 2025 season is officially underway. I'm Trevor Sikkema. That's Dalton Wasserman. As we did this morning and over the last couple of days here, we are going to talk about some of those signings. We're going to go back and forth with you guys in the chat as a lot of those moves that we have talked about over the last couple of days have now become official. But what we are also going to do here on this show is talk about the top remaining available players and some potential team combinations here. Dalton, how we do? What'd you do in between when we logged off 4 hours ago and now? Did you take a nap? Did you get some lunch? What do we do here?
No, we had sandwiches here at the office. Sandwiches are always good. I
didn't get sandwiches.
Oh, well, I mean, it's hard to ship sandwiches to North Carolina. What do you want me to say? I mean, unless you want us to put some in the freezer and send them to you, I could do that.
No, it's fine. I got to work harder to get sandwiches. I needed the push. I needed this.
I
motivation.
I hosted a free agency chat in the PFF Discord. Get into that, and we can have some of that with both of us. You've been in there too, so next time anybody wants to get in the PFF Discord and have a chat, we can chat it up. Free agency, draft, anything you guys want to talk about. We did that for an hour, and what else was it? There was something else. We were watching the Big 12 basketball tournament. That's what we were doing over here.
Somebody in the chat says, did you watch John Wick 1 and 2 since I called you out for not watching John Wick early? You would have had time. 4 hours is enough for John Wick 1 and 2. You could have done it. Now it's on you.
See,
now it's on you.
You know, I hadn't thought of it. Nobody else here behind the glass thought of it. We could have done that. But they really, really wanted to watch Iowa State beat Cincinnati in college basketball. So, that was more their choice. It was left to a group vote, and that's what they wanted to do. So, I didn't. Maybe I would have watched John Wick instead of that. But I ate sandwiches, and I did a Discord chat, and we had a good time.
That's good. That's good. It's good to know that you're ready for this show as well. For the next hour or so, we're going to be reacting to, again, a lot of the news that we've heard over the last couple of days becoming official or not, potentially or not. If anything falls through, we're going to be here with you guys to talk about it and break it all down. We've got a lot of really great tools for you guys over at PFF.com. We have the free agency tracker, which you could see sort of by position, also by team, so you could break down, like who my team has signed, who might still be out there. Here on this episode, we're going to go to the free agency tracker and the free agency ranking tool, I should say, and we're going to sort by the guys who are unsigned and go down the list of players who have not been signed yet. And we're going to talk about sort of them still being available and some potential destinations. Dalton, to get us kicked, I see the chat's already lit. Love you guys so much for already being back here. I want to go back and forth with you guys throughout this entire show. We do have some news to kick off this very show. It's not an official signing. However, per Adam Schefter, works for ESPN, it's an insider. Don't know if you've heard of him. Free agent quarterback Russell Wilson is scheduled to fly tonight to Cleveland to visit the Browns on Thursday before scheduling to fly to New York on Thursday to visit with the Giants on Friday. It's Russell Wilson. Played for the Steelers last year. There's a lot of talk about Aaron Rodgers now being the quarterback of the Pittsburgh Steelers. That hasn't happened officially yet, but now it seems to be, is moving on, seeing what's out there in Cleveland for the Giants. Do you have a favorite landing spot here for Russell Wilson as we start this exercise in this episode here?
I think the Giants make a little bit more sense when you consider what they have on their offense with Malik Neighbors re-signing Darius Slayton, Wan'Dale Robinson. And obviously, they have to protect Wilson. And the Giants, actually, I should say both teams, the Browns or the Giants, may be trying to usher in a rookie quarterback in the top 3 of the draft. But I think the Giants a little bit better. Look, that Browns situation is tough. Now, does he have a path to starting there? Absolutely. But again, it's an older offensive line. It's a pretty empty running back room. And Jerry Jeudy and David Njoku are probably your only legitimate receivers, one at receiver, one at tight end. So, I think the Giants fit in a little bit better. I know the Giants, obviously, there's some urgency to win in 2025, whether it's with a veteran quarterback or a rookie or even both. But, we've thought the whole time the Giants, but the Browns, look, right now, they pretty much just have Kenny Pickett and, Jameis Winston is still a free agent. I could see it. I could see a path for him starting, week 1 of 2025 either way. I would think the Giants would be a little bit better fit, though.
Yeah, I think so as well. Tyler Sobchak, who is our producer, who is a diehard Browns fan, is saying, no, send Russell Wilson to the Jets. So apparently he wants the Justin Fields, Russell Wilson experiment to continue on your behalf, Dalton, to have that quarterback connection stay there, except for now with your New York Jets. We also have, we have Aaron Rodgers officially being released. We also have Cooper Kupp officially being released. And even though he's not in our free agent tracker yet, because that just happened, so we would have to get him in there, but I think he won't be a free agent for too long. any specific landing spots that you have for Cooper Kupp here now that you don't have to trade for him? Now you can just go out there and sign him. I wonder, is a team like Green Bay in the conversation? It kind of depends on what you look at for Cooper Kupp. Like, do you think he's a wide receiver one? Do you think he gets lost in the shuffle there in Green Bay? I wonder if they would be interested. I wonder if the Patriots would be interested. Do we think he's that wide receiver one caliber or helps a team like the Panthers, for example? Any thoughts on Cooper Kupp and where his landing spot could be?
Yeah, I think New England jumps out because they've really missed on all of the big names so far at wide receiver, right? When you talk about T. Higgins and DK Metcalf and anyone else who's been moved, Debo Samuel as well. So, look, I think New England's going to come to mind with every wide receiver name in the book. And it's one of the stories right now remaining is the number of these veteran wide receivers that are still on the board, right? Cooper Kupp now, Amari Cooper, Stephon Diggs, Tyler Lockett, Keenan Allen, a lot of guys that we've known as big names over the last half decade that are going to be looking at probably one-year deals, and most of them probably trying to find a contending team like DeAndre Hopkins did with the Ravens. So I think for any of those guys, if we're talking contending teams, I think if the Eagles want a nice third option, I think the LA Chargers are in the receiver market for sure. The Denver Broncos to find a complement to Cortland Sutton. I think even the Chicago Bears, if they want somebody in the slot, if they want to look at somebody like Cooper Kupp, I think makes some sense with Keenan Allen as a free agent. So I think you're looking at teams that obviously either are already postseason teams or trying to push into that to find kind of a complementary weapon with any of these guys, right? Because a lot of them used to be number one receivers at some point in their careers, and now they're on the decline a little bit as they get into their 30s. So I do think New England's going to be a piece of it, but a lot of these veteran guys are going to try to find contending teams, again, like DeAndre Hopkins did, to find themselves in the postseason this year.
How about this one? Before we get back to the free agency rankings and some potential landing spots there, one, I would love to hear what the chat thinks of where Cooper Kupp should go. I see a couple of you already shouting out some potential destinations. Would love to hear from the rest of you as you're watching the show. Jack Sanborn to the Dallas Cowboys. I love it, dude. When I do mock drafts, I often give Jihad Campbell now to the Dallas Cowboys at number 12 because, quite frankly, they just don't have anyone. Right now, Maris Liufau is linebacker one in Dallas with DeMarvion Overshown still recovering from major knee surgery. And then you have Eric Kendricks, who was on the team last year, no longer on the team now. He's an unrestricted free agent. He's getting up there in age. So Maris Liufau was their linebacker one, and as much as I liked him and felt like he was underrated in last year's draft class, that's not what you wanted going into this upcoming season. Sanborn at least raises the floor significantly for them at the linebacker level. So look, I think we can, criticize, poke holes in some of the prioritization and the deals that the Dallas Cowboys have done up to this point. Giving Kayvon Turpin all that money, when they really haven't given much to anybody else. It was a lot of small deals, and then him. I'm not saying that in a vacuum that one's terrible or anything, but it's just interesting to see how you're allocating money. And then you go out and you trade for Kaiir Elam, you're taking a chance on a first-round draft pick, who at this point's been a bust. This one I actually like. And I like the I like the Javonte Williams signing as well. So Javonte Williams, and then bringing in Jack Sanborn. I actually like those moves a lot for Dallas. So Dallas gets a thumbs up from me on those two moves. What do you think about this one?
I think Sanborn especially, because one of the themes, again, has been they need to be able to run and stop the run. And I don't think some of their other moves have really been indicative of a team that's trying to aid their run defense, right? When you think about going and getting Solomon Thomas, who struggled in run defense, Peyton Turner from the Saints, who's from another former first-round pick who struggled in run defense. I think Sanborn's a guy you can at least put in at linebacker on early downs, right? Had a 70-plus run defense grade each of the last 2 years in Chicago. Not one to get into coverage much. You can usually try to keep him in on first and second downs and then take him out in those coverage situations. But this is one where I do like it. You mentioned it. They're thin at linebacker. Eric Kendricks is a free agent, Overshown with the injury. They're really kind of thin, especially when it comes to the run support side of things, right? So I think Sanborn, look, they're not going to pay him to be a starter at whatever cheap one-year contract he's going to be on. But for a guy to give you 300-plus snaps in run defense and be a nice special teams contributor, I think Sanborn's actually one of the better signings that they've made so far.
All right, I'm just catching back up on the chat with the Cooper Kupp destinations. Both Cooper Kupp and Rodgers are Vikings. Wow. Aaron Rodgers to the Vikings would be hilarious. Devin says that Cooper Kupp's going to be on the Patriots. Now we've got some love for him going to the Carolina Panthers. I'll bring back Elijah Moore to the Jets. I don't know about all that.
Yeah, I'm good on that.
Yeah, all right. Dalton's good on that. Cooper Kupp to Washington. I do think it's hilarious that when a guy gets released, basically just every fan base in the NFL when they really want that player. It's just clamoring for it. It makes you feel like, maybe that player shouldn't have left. I understand there's contract implications, the salary cap that went against it, and the fact that the Rams were able to bring in Devontae Adams. I get it. It's just funny when he gets released and every single fan base wants in on it. Let's go to the PFF best available that we have here. It's a couple of receivers at the very top of the list, of this free agent list. Amari Cooper is one of them, and Stephon Diggs is the other. I actually, speaking of the Carolina Panthers, I actually like the spot of Carolina for destination for Amari Cooper. That's one that I think makes a ton of sense. I think that he can command some of that wide receiver one attention. Now, I don't think he's as good as what he was when he was in his prime with the Raiders, but I do still think that this is a really good football player, and I think that he could be what Carolina needs. It would allow them to navigate the draft the way that they need to. And right now, I don't know if they have the receiving additions to be able to do that. So I like Amari Cooper for the Panthers. What do you think?
I think that makes a lot of sense, right? When you talk about, I think he would walk in there, and obviously Adam Thielen's a great route runner. He moves around the formation, gets in the slot, but I think he would still walk in there as the best route runner and somebody who could win one-on-one and add a little more diversity to that receiving room, right? When you talk about Xavier Legette being a vertical threat, Coker's got size and speed, Adam Thielen does what he does in the slot. I think if they're not going to lean in on maybe possibly taking a receiver if Tetero and McMillan were available in the draft and what their opinion is of him, or if they just want to build on defense, then you can get out ahead of it, take somebody like Cooper, and you've got 4 viable receiving threats, plus you re-sign Tommy Tremble at tight end, plus you still have Jatavian Sanders at tight end, and they want to run the football. You at least have a relatively balanced offense, and Cooper has something left in the tank. I just think the midseason trade to Buffalo didn't go so well statistically for him because it was just hard for them to integrate him in, and the Bills have an offense where they distribute the ball all the way around pretty equally, right? They're not going to force feed one guy like they used to with Stephon Diggs. Allen's more about reading the defense and getting the ball where it needs to be. So I do think Cooper would be a good fit in Carolina as something at least close to a number one receiver who still has something left in the tank at 30, 31 years old.
I love this one. Before we get to Stephon Diggs and some potential destinations for him, former Jaguars tight end Evan Ingram is signing a 2-year deal with the Denver Broncos. Let's go, baby. That was the ideal landing spot. I talked about this a couple of days ago when the Jags released him. Love the idea of the Broncos drafting him. Going back to Jason, who gave us a super chat this morning to talk about the Broncos and a potential draft strategy. We used the PFF mock draft simulator to run through a couple where we said, hey, we often prioritize tight end for the Denver Broncos, but what if they went with an interior defensive lineman in the first round to sort of get ahead of some free agents that they have for 2026? Zach Allen is one of them. And maybe hit tight end and running back a little bit later in the draft. And we actually kind of like that strategy a lot. I like it even more now with Evan Ingram going to the Broncos. So the Broncos, to me, I hope I'm not spoiling something. I guess I'm teasing it a little bit. We're going to give out grades for every single team when it came to how they navigated free agency. Broncos are an A for me. I love what they did with Talanoa Hufanga and Drake Greenlaw already. Love that they added Evan Ingram. Everything else from this point on, icing on the cake. This is an A free agency period for the Broncos for me.
Yeah, I agree. They filled some really nice needs. Greenlaw was my favorite signing of the group, and I'm looking at Evan Ingram. He wants to play in an offense, and he was successful in Jacksonville when he was allowed to make plays after the catch. And obviously the Broncos have a little bit more of a conservative passing game with Bo Nix and their receiving core, but 8th in the league this past year in yards after catch per reception. So I do think that fits in with Evan Ingram and what they can do with Bo Nix, just creating underneath throws for him in space and allowing Ingram to do what he does after the catch. Dealt with some injuries this past year, but for the most part, pretty darn good in Jacksonville. I think he's a weapon that Sean Payton is going to know how to use. I still think now it's interesting because Ingram's more of that flex guy. Maybe they try to find more of an inline tight end who can help them in the run game as well, and maybe they find that in the middle rounds of the draft instead, unless they just feel still that highly about Colston Loveland, and you're living with Loveland and Ingram at number 20. But this gives you a little bit of flexibility to go, okay, at least we have something on the receiving side of this at the very least to help us out, especially continuing to capitalize on that yards after catch while they find other weapons in the offense.
What about Stephon Diggs? Some potential landing spots for Diggs. I don't think it'll cost you a ton to get him on the roster at this point with him going unsigned, coming off the knee injury. Maybe Seattle? They just signed Marquez Valdes-Scantling this morning, so it's a little bit of an addition there to Jackson Smith and Jigba. So I do kind of like that landing spot. I also think about maybe the team the MVS just came from, New Orleans Saints. I mean, I don't know. I never know how much money the Saints actually have to be able to make moves like this, but I think that could potentially be a landing spot as well. Maybe the Patriots. Patriots certainly could. They need a top-tier wide receiver, but any specific landing spots for Stephon Diggs?
I still think about where his brother is on the Dallas Cowboys too. I mean, I know they just extended Kevontae Turpin and they still have Jalen Tolbert in there as well. But I think Diggs, obviously for the fit of Trayvon also being there, but I think they need one more outside route runner that could help them and take some pressure off CeeDee Lamb. I think the Cowboys could be an option here for Diggs also. But I think he's just like DeAndre Hopkins, he's going to look for a contending team first, and part of it's going to depend on the health of his knee as well.
There's another guy on here that's very interesting that a lot of people were asking about this morning. Cam Robinson. So this is somebody who is a longtime left tackle for the Jacksonville Jaguars. They trade him over to the Minnesota Vikings. He is still available. They traded him over and it was a one-year thing. What do we think about some potential spots for Cam Robinson? When you think about Cam Robinson, do you like him most like as a zone blocking offensive lineman, a man gap scheme, run blocking offensive lineman? Are there any teams that you think could really, because some people have talked about him maybe as a guard too. We haven't seen that at the NFL, but it feels like there's just been whispers of like, all right, well, he can play tackle for you, obviously, at the NFL level, but he could also kick in a guard. What do you think about Cam Robinson and where he could end up?
I think the question is, at this point, if he's looking to play left tackle, I think the obvious spot is would the New England Patriots do it, right? And then maybe focus on the skill players, right? When you're talking about, they need wide receivers, they need running backs in this draft, and it would make their decision a little bit clearer at the top of the draft, right? I don't think there's a big preference on what scheme that he plays in. I think overall, he's a roughly average player, right? He can get in there and start. Is he going to blow you away? Not necessarily, but if he were willing to move maybe over to the right side or inside, like you mentioned, let's say he moves over to right tackle, I would think a team maybe like, say, the Arizona Cardinals, who have a need at right tackle, right? They're not going to move Paris Johnson off the left side. If he's willing to move inside, could he be someone for the LA Chargers, right? I think, or the Seattle Seahawks would be an obvious one if he was looking to move inside to guard. I think that would make a lot of sense. And, it's just a matter of, does he feel like, okay, hey, I'm going into these negotiations thinking I am playing left tackle, or if he's willing to be a little bit more flexible, then that opens some options for him, because we've seen, the guard market, if you're even a solid guard, you're getting a boatload of money, right? Right tackles are getting paid more than ever now. So I think if he's flexible and open to changing positions, then he's got a lot more options. If not, then I look at maybe New England as the obvious one, as the team with the biggest left tackle hole right now in football. And I just don't think, if his price range is going to stay where we projected, I would say the Houston Texans, but the Texans don't really have much money to work with, and that's one of the obvious ones. So that'll be the question for me. Is he even, let's say if he was willing to move to right tackle, I think about the New York Jets too. That's really the one spot in their offensive line that is not settled right now. There's been even some Armand Membu rumors at number 7 overall, which would make sense. They're pretty well set at the other 4 spots, but that's going to depend on Robinson being willing to move either over to the right side or to the inside to give himself options.
Yeah, I like the Texans fit, but like you said, it would be very unlikely that would be able to happen for them now at this point. I also like the New England Patriots. I feel like he could start right away for them. I do like the Chargers quite a bit as well. If he's willing to kick inside to guard, that all of a sudden becomes a pretty ideal spot for me. Tevin Jenkins still being on the board. I think the Seattle Seahawks and the Los Angeles Chargers, that certainly goes into it there. If he wants to if he wants to go to one of those teams, I feel like they would absolutely use him. Maybe the New Orleans Saints as well. What about the Arizona Cardinals? Arizona Cardinals as well. I feel like they have some interior offensive line needs too. Tevin Jenkins could be a guy for the Cardinals to go to. Any of those teams really stand out to you? I feel like a lot of these other teams have been able to get some new offensive linemen in there, but when I think of Tevin Jenkins, Chargers, Cardinals are the 2 teams that I keep going back to for him.
The Cardinals are a good one, and when you consider they're bringing back Evan Brown, who started at left guard this past year, but not really. Again, I think the Cardinals, this is going to be a story too. I know we've talked a lot about their defense this offseason. Obviously, they got Josh Sweat and they kept Baron Browning, but the right side of their offensive line needs some work, right? You've got Will Hernandez, who's a free agent. You've got Kelvin Beachum, I believe, is a free agent, so they really need to fill in, especially as much as they want to run the football. They could be a team that takes a chance it puts Tevin Jenkins maybe over there at right guard or moves Evan Brown over to the other side. Because, again, when he's healthy, he's really good. He's an athletic player. He can run block with the best of them, but it's just a matter of that availability and getting him to play 17 games right. If they felt good about that, I think Arizona would be a really good spot, especially for as much as they want to run the ball with James Conner, with Trey Benson, with Kyler Murray. That's the base of their offense, getting multiple tight ends out there and running people over. If Jenkins could stay healthy, it'd be a great fit for him.
Mekhi Becton is another interior offensive lineman. If you scroll down a little bit more, where is he in the rankings? He's 14th. We have him as the 14th best free agent still available here. Now, he's a little bit different. I feel like he is much more of a powerful interior offensive lineman. He is guard specific, in my opinion. What about Cincinnati from Mekhi Becton? I mean, they're basically just putting the Monstars together along the offensive line, right? You got Amarius Mims, you got Orlando Brown Jr. If you put Mekhi Becton next to him, I mean, like those are three massive offensive linemen there. So what do you think about the fit for Cincinnati with Mekhi Becton? That's where my mind goes to with him.
That makes a lot of sense, too, and you mentioned it. I think you want more of a downhill running game as opposed to a lateral one. So if there's anyone out there questioning, okay, why haven't they said maybe a Seattle with Mekhi Becton? That's why. He's not one of those outside zone lateral run blocking type guys, right? I think Cincinnati, and this is another one where Arizona would make a lot of sense, too, to plug him into that right guard spot. But, that's another thing. We talk a lot about the Bengals stars, and we'll get into Trey Hendrickson in a little bit here and T. Higgins and all those negotiations, but they still have needs on the offensive line. They were still near the bottom of the league in pass blocking grade, and they're really just bailed out by Joe Burrow's processing speed, right? So, look, Becton obviously moving inside, finally surged into something of the player that he was supposed to be when the Jets drafted him, but just couldn't keep his knees together there at tackle, right? A lot of injuries in New York. I think in a place like that with a downhill run game, right, where it's not too complicated, you're not asking him to move laterally too much, I think Becton could certainly fit here in Cincinnati if they're willing to pull the trigger.
I think the same conversations probably could be had about Kevin Zeitler as well, who we have a little bit higher. We have him 8th overall on our free agents available list. Again, if you guys are watching this, you can go ahead and go to pff.com and you can find the best available, ranking the best available 2025 free agents is the article. Cooper Kupp is the hero image that's on there. So if you're scrolling the front of the website and you see that picture of Cooper Kupp, that's the article that you're looking for there. Also, while you guys are here, if you are not subscribed to the YouTube channel, we would love it if you would do so. We've got great free agency coverage for you, not just stopping today as the new league year opens, but we're going to continue it all week long and honestly all offseason long, really getting into how these new free agents are going to help out your NFL team. So make sure you subscribe and don't miss any of that. We got a handful of corners. I'm curious, do any of these stand out to you? We got Rasul Douglas, we got Kendall Fuller, we got Asante Samuel Jr. Those, I guess, I don't want to throw Mike Hilton in there because he's a different kind of breed. He's a slot only type of defender. But Douglas, Fuller, Asante Samuel Jr. Any of those three corners that we've got listed in the top 8 currently available really stand out to you that you're just intrigued to see where they're going to land?
I don't know that they necessarily stand out amongst each other, but there is a spot that stands out for me as far as maybe trying to sign one of these three guys, considering there's a sudden need at corner. And I'm curious maybe if the Philadelphia Eagles are a team that would sign one of these three guys. Kendall Fuller, I think, especially in Vic Fangio's defense, heavy zone, heavy and off coverage for the corners. I think, look, didn't quite work out last year in Miami the way he wanted it to, but he's still a pretty good player, especially in that off zone kind of role, right? And I think that would fit in with Vic Fangio in Philadelphia really well. So it would not shock me at all if any of those three guys were to take it over to the Eagles, start across from Quinyon Mitchell, and keep Cooper DeJean in the slot where he was so darn good this past year. I don't think you want to move him out of that role. Now, if it became necessary to move DeJean outside and find a different answer in the slot, they could do that. I think he's fully capable of playing outside. But if it was me, I would be looking into one of these three guys with the cap space that they have now. There's some other rumors around the Eagles, around some bigger names, especially off of the edge. But I think if they're looking for a starting corner in a system that's favorable to them, I think any of those three guys could fit. I think especially Fuller. I think Fuller still has something in the tank. We've talked a lot about how the Dolphins secondary struggled this past year, and I think it was really more due to a lack of cohesion. And then the second half of the year, it was just kind of tough emotionally for him being so out of the year and the quarterback injuries and everything in Miami. But I think they could all fit in Philadelphia. I'm looking at Philly, looking at the corner market, maybe not waiting till the draft to find another young player, maybe find a veteran to fit in that Darius Slay role on the outside.
Yeah, and obviously Rasul Douglas started his career in Philadelphia when they were going on some playoff runs around 2017, 2018, 2019. So familiar with the area, no doubt about it. And maybe he would go back to Philly as his career is kind of in the second half, if you will. Levon Uzurike is, where is he? Ranked 13th on the board here as the best available free agents that we still have. But we will be taking him off of that list very shortly because he re-signs with Detroit. It is a 1-year, $5.5 million deal. Signing back with the Detroit Lions, I think that this is somebody who they had a lot of hopes in, who was limited from a back injury that he had. I like him going back to Detroit. I think that it's also smart for if they think he is fully healthy, it makes sense for them to keep him around and just increase the depth of that defensive line. So I wanted to mention that Levon Uzurike off the board here. Not really anybody else in the top 10 that we didn't hit. This is where it really becomes interesting. We've already kind of had the Aaron Rodgers conversation. I think that we all believe that he's going to be a Pittsburgh Steeler when it's all said and done. These edge rushers. We've got Von Miller coming in at ranked 17. Zadarius Smith at 18. Azeez Ojulari at 19. DeMarcus Lawrence at 21. Dante Fowler Jr. at 24. I mean, it's just a lot of veteran edge rushers that are there. Are there teams that feel like in the back end of the draft order, we've talked about so many of those guys just needing edge rushers. So does a Washington, should they be interested in one of these guys? Should Detroit be interested in one of these guys? Should Baltimore be interested in one of these guys? These veteran edge rushers that are still available, is there any one of them that you're the most intrigued by, or do you have a landing spot for any of them that you like?
I think that, look, several of them fit in a lot of places because they're going to be looking at one-year contracts, and they're going to be looking at rotational roles, right? Von Miller especially really came into more just playing on passing downs for the Bills, right? I think DeMarcus Lawrence might be the same way, depending on, what teams think he has left in the tank. You mentioned a few of them. I think the Chargers, another one. I know they re-signed Khalil Mack, but he's really still an every-down player for them. You talk about right now they have Mack and they have Tuipulotu. You could mix in a designated pass rusher type, one of these veteran guys on the Chargers as well. I think if you're just looking for a team with depth, maybe the Cardinals, right, to fill in somebody along with a Baron Browning and a Josh Sweat, right? Think about the Minnesota Vikings. I mean, I know they have Turner and Van Ginkel and Grenard, but Van Ginkel and Turner are guys who Brian Flores can use to drop in coverage sometimes, and he really likes to move them around the formation, especially Van Ginkel. So I just think, San Francisco's another one. They've signed veteran edge rushers in the past. We know Leonard Floyd just left. They're looking for pass rush depth. So I think there's plenty of places. I mean, even at Kansas City, right? Like you think about, okay, they have Chris Jones on the inside. They have George Karlaftis outside, but they don't have very many dominant one-on-one pass rushers outside of that. So I think there's plenty of places for all those guys. It's going to be later to sign them because they're probably, same as the receiver market. They're older guys looking for contending teams. They're likely going to be on one-year contracts. I think Zadarius Smith is certainly going to end up somewhere. I think even Philadelphia. I don't think we've gotten official word on Brandon Graham retiring or not yet, but I know we mentioned the Eagles a lot, but they're as good as they are, and they still have some cap space to work with to just keep adding to that monster. So it wouldn't shock me at all if one of those guys, even let's say, I don't know, Von Miller. Let's say Brandon Graham retires and Von Miller says, you know what? The Eagles just won one. I'm going to go try to win another one with them. It would make a lot of sense to me.
I'm going to ask you about Calais Campbell because it feels like he is the ageless one, right? It feels like no matter where he goes, he is still at almost 40 years old, able to increase the floor of whatever team he has been on, whether it's been the Falcons, whether it's been the Miami Dolphins, certainly during his time with the Jacksonville Jaguars as well. And he's still doing it at an old age. But I wanted to prime you with that so you could think of some landing spots potentially for the veteran there. But I like Von Miller with the Commanders the most. I feel as though at this point in time with Von Miller, he's just a designated pass rusher, right? He is just we're going to try to put him in and let him just use all of his juice, all of his focus to winning a handful of reps every single game. And I think he showed in flashes that he could still do that even last year in Buffalo. It didn't happen as much, but I feel as though Dan Quinn would know how to use Von Miller best at this point in his career to still give you those big moments. You don't need him to play all three downs. You don't need him to fit the run on first and second down, but just give him that opportunity to get after the passer. I still think he can do that at a decently high level. I like Azeez Ojulari going to the Arizona Cardinals, teaming up with his brother who is there as well. I think that that's a cool story, and I think they need him. So I would like that. I would like that combination there for them. Zadarius Smith, man, that's an interesting one to me. Where do I like Zadarius Smith the most?
Is it Kansas City?
It might be Kansas City. It might be Kansas City. It might be Seattle. Like Seattle's, they're all right at edge, but maybe they could use a little bit more in there from him. Atlanta, if they think he's an upgrade.
I still think Philadelphia wouldn't shock me. If they're getting anybody on a 1-year contract and Howie's just messing around trying to win another one.
I don't mind that one. Somebody's saying Smith to Baltimore. Back again, returning? Maybe.
Could be. I don't see why not.
Unless there's any sort of ill will, which I don't think there is.
Maybe the Bears, another guy to rotate in there?
Would the Bears complete the cycle for him?
Would it be all four?
He was with the Lions, he was with the Packers, he was with the Vikings. And if he
goes
to the Bears,
okay. So now, he has to go to the Bears then. Yeah, he's going to have to.
That would complete the cycle.
I didn't even think. I was thinking of it more of just like, hey, another guy on that D-line. They're building the trenches. But you know what? I mean, Ben Johnson, Lions, he at least knows him. I'm always coming up with connections. When you were mentioning the Commanders, I even think about, Dan Quinn had DeMarcus Lawrence in Dallas. Maybe see if he's got something left, right? There's so much of this that is about that. But, it would be fun to complete the whole NFC North tour, wouldn't it? How many
Tyler,
players have we had that played for all four teams in one division? Have we had any of that?
I don't think so. I don't know off the top of my head. Maybe Josh Johnson's probably the best guess that I got, just because he played for like 22 teams in the NFL. So that's my bet. Ryan Fitzpatrick, has he done the full division tour? I don't think he has.
He did not play for New England. He got 3 out of the 4, but he didn't play for the Patriots.
Yet. He didn't play for the Patriots yet.
You never know. Things happen.
Tyler in the chat would like us to acknowledge that Ingram to the Broncos just happened. Tyler, we did talk about this like 10 minutes ago. It was one of my favorite low-key signings that's happened. I think that it frees up the Broncos to do a lot of stuff in the first round. We went through a Broncos-centric mock draft that we did earlier this morning, and we explored some other possibilities for them to actually attack defensive line instead of tight end. That's even before the Evan Ingram news. I really like that move. I think that it's a good one. So, Tyler, there you go. Tyler just really wanted us to talk about Evan Ingram to the Denver Broncos, so I wanted to make sure that I reiterated it again, because I feel like he might not be well if we didn't address that at some point. Okay, anybody else in the top 20? Again, I want to just drive the conversation the whole time. Anybody else in the top 20 that we have here, the best available over at PFF.com, that really intrigues you?
Well, I think
we have not talked about.
I didn't see if he was in that top 20 there. Well, there he is, right at number 20. You started to go into something about Calais Campbell before, and I was looking through teams that maybe have that sort of. Maybe that's another one. Maybe the Denver Broncos with Calais Campbell fit in there. They kind of mix around that front a little bit. You get a run stopping front. You have like John Franklin Myers. You have Calais Campbell there on early downs, and then you put all those pass rushers there in obvious situations. Obviously, you have Benito and Zach Allen and guys like that. I think about the Denver Broncos with Calais Campbell. Maybe the Green Bay Packers. I'm looking at defensive tackle, just run defense grades right now, and who's kind of in the bottom half of this. I see Denver. I see Green Bay. Again, Arizona. Full circle to Arizona. Could do that. It's been a while, but
that's true.
The Bills, maybe Buffalo, if they can fit him in that 4-man front. I don't know if he's as comfortable playing there. I think there's plenty. Yeah.
I was going to say a team that could really use him, honestly, is the New York Giants. Like the Giants, for as much as they have invested in edge rusher over the years, they have not done the same at defensive tackle. They brought in Roy Robertson-Harris, so maybe they just think like, hey, we're good there. That's our addition there. Maybe that's the case. But I think about Calais Campbell and the length, the high football IQ, just everything next to Dexter Lawrence. And I really like that connection there for them. I don't think adding Roy Robertson-Harris is like enough. I don't think you feel like really good about the room with just that. So I think about the Giants. Then what about the Patriots too? Patriots continuing to put the the gas pedal to the floor, if you will, with the defensive line. They brought in Harold Landry. They brought in Milton Williams. They have Christian Barmore. They got Keon White. You throw in Calais Campbell in there as well. That's a pretty dang good defensive line rotation for Mike Vrabel and whatever the Patriots might want to do. So
Campbell would be a really nice. I know they paid Williams all that money, and that's playing every snap sort of money, but his run defense lags far behind the pass rush. At least this year it did. The last couple years before that, it was pretty good, I think, in the low 70s. But it would be a nice compliment to Williams and Barmore, right? If you get those early down, even 5-man fronts going, and you got Campbell and all those guys you just acquired mentioned, plus Robert Spillane right behind him, who's one of the best run defenders at linebacker in the game. I think that makes a lot of sense too. If Mike Vrabel's just going to go full tilt, listen, we're going to have a great defense this year, and we'll work on the offense as we go. I think that makes a lot of sense, too.
A little bit of a draft question here from the chat. Parkour is asking, with Pierce retiring, do you have a feeling about a possible Walter Nolan to Baltimore connection there? Do you think that they would go interior defensive line at the back end of the first round now with Pierce retiring?
They could think about it. I don't know that the Ravens aren't usually a team that goes defensive tackle that early, right? They're usually finding guys in the middle rounds.
Let's check.
I can't think of the last time they took a D tackle in like the first. It's usually more something along the lines. Obviously, they went corner with Nate Wiggins last year, Zay Flowers the year before that. That is the last time
they took so they took Odafe Owe at pick number 31 on the defensive line in 2021. Patrick Queen in 2020. Man, yeah, they have corner a lot, offensive line a lot.
I feel like they go on day 2 with defensive tackle. I think about when they got guys like Travis Jones,
Definitely.
Or for some reason I'm going all the way back to the Terrence Cody days, which is kind of far, but I mean
Timmy Jernigan in the second round. I'm looking at that right now. Dude, when's the last time they went defensive line in the first round? 2006.
Who do you have?
Nada.
Oh, Haloti Ngata. Well, of course, the one time you do it, you get like an all-time great. So that makes if you can find an all-time great, go ahead and take him in the first round. But
they also drafted Dewan Edwards. Oh no, that wasn't the first round. That was just their first overall selection of the 2024 NFL draft, but that wasn't the second round. My apologies.
So, I mean, it's not a position they usually prioritize that early. Now, if there's somebody they love, if they love Walter Nolan, if they love Derek Harmon, somebody like that, cool, but it's not usually something they go with. I would think maybe they go edge rusher or maybe like a Tyler Booker somewhere with that, what is it, the 27th pick, I think it is, that they have. I think when you're looking at their defensive line, especially with the number, with what Michael Pierce did with his size in the run defense, you can find that in the middle rounds of this draft. Again, a guy we've talked about a lot, when you think about a guy like a CJ West from Indiana, or I think about JJ Pegues from Ole Miss, so guys you could get in round 3 or 4 as those big A-gap plug-and-run stoppers. I think the Ravens will get one of them. I would just doubt it goes in round 1.
We officially now have Darius Slay to the Pittsburgh Steelers. So that was reported, but we thought that it was going to happen, and then there was some silence over, like a day and a half since that news broke. And we were like, is this happening or not? So now we officially have Darius Slay to the Pittsburgh Steelers. So just wanted to make sure that we got that shout out there. Okay, getting back to the list. Anybody else that you want to call out? Again, like I don't want to feel like I'm just throwing a bunch of names at you. Is there anybody, as you sort of scroll this list here, we'll get Darius Slay out of there. I'm surprised that Juan Thornhill hasn't signed anywhere. Justin Simmons, but it's kind of the same thing that we've seen over the last couple of years. Julian Blackmon too. I feel like these are good safeties.
Yeah, it's another one where I look at Philadelphia and I look at some of the value plays they could have here with the safety. If they wanted Justin Simmons to reunite with Vic Fangio, if they wanted, I know he's usually more of a single high kind of guy, but if they wanted Juan Thornhill, I see Julian Blackmon down there at number 39 is another really good player back there at safety. He's a solid starter, gives you a high floor on the back end. I think he's another one that intrigues me. A team looking for a starting safety. I'm surprised they haven't gone after Julian Blackmon yet, because I think he's a similar player to a lot of the guys we've already seen signed. So look, it was a pretty good safety market. A lot of the top end guys got within that same $15 to $17 million range that we've been talking about. But I think there's a few starters over there at that position that could help a team like Philadelphia. If Jacksonville wanted to sign another one, if Indianapolis even wanted to, if they wanted to find a way to keep Julian Blackmon at a relatively cheap price. I know they went and got Cam Bynum, but we've seen in recent years how important the safety position is. It's not the deepest draft when it comes to safeties. There's a few guys early that teams are going to covet, but I think these are some solid starters, especially in the right system, especially when you're talking about Thornhill and Blackmon, who've been solid players for a long time.
Yeah, I think the Bengals as well. A couple of people in the chat are calling them out. I think the Bengals could potentially bring in one of these safeties, especially because it feels like you can get one of them relatively cheap that you could throw into that room now that Von Miller's or not Von Miller, Von Bell is a free agent. Geno Stone wasn't as good as they wanted him to be. He kind of came on at the end of the year, but it's sort of disappointing what he was able to bring to the table. They like Jordan Battle, but I feel as though they could definitely bring in another one of those safeties to really help out. There was another team I was like, oh, I remember how excited we got to draft Kevin Winston Jr. to the New England Patriots when we were going through that mock draft a couple of days ago. So maybe a safety there with the New England Patriots. Jacksonville, now that they don't have Andre Sisco, because the Jags, I'm looking up their safety room right now. Their safety room is...
They signed Eric Murray, I think.
They signed Eric Murray. They have Darnell Savage, who has been bad for them. They still have Andrew Wingard. They have Antonio Johnson, who's listed as a strong safety and not like a nickel defender, which I guess they would have a logjam at nickel defender with Jerry and Jones as well. So Antonio Johnson playing nickel for Texas A&M, he's not really going to do that for them. I just wonder if safety could be upgraded there for them as well.
Yeah, no, I agree. I mean, and again, you mentioned the logjam of inside defenders now, and I was even debating with someone earlier, again, is it going to be Jordan Lewis out there on the outside? Is it going to be Jerryon Jones? It feels like they're just kind of collecting talent and figuring out where it'll go later, and the draft could play a big part of that. If for any reason, say, a Travis Hunter would have followed them at number 5, I would think they have plans for him playing corner across from Tyson Campbell. It feels like they're just trying to raise the floor on a team that really struggled in coverage last season. So Jacksonville, I mean, there's certainly options. Again, every year we see a handful of guys who go for cheaper than they should have. Guys, I think, again, like Julian Blackmon sitting there, I'm like, that's a starting caliber player. Right? And if you're going to get him significantly cheaper than some of the other safeties we've seen go, then I think you take the gamble on it and just see what happens and raise the floor on your secondary.
We got a super chat, first super chat of this show from Slam and Sam, who's been in the chat for the last couple of days. So salute to you, Sam. We appreciate you getting in here and giving us a super chat. So the Chiefs signed QB2 and wide receiver 4. Can they afford more? Now, it was recently reported that they restructured Patrick Mahomes' deal and Chris Jones' deal to free up a lot of cap space. I'm looking at over the cap right now, and if this is up to date, their effective cap space, which effective cap space takes into account what their draft picks are going to sign for as well. So you actually have the effective amount of money that you can operate free agency from, is right around $30 million. So they've still got a good amount of money that they could potentially spend. Thoughts here with the Kansas City Chiefs? Do we feel like they're going to be active? I don't know how much the Kansas City Chiefs are going to be active still, because to recap who they have signed, they signed Jalen Moore, which feels like a little bit of an overpay, but they need something in offensive tackle. They signed tight end Robert Tonyan. They signed Christian Fulton as well to give them some depth and a potential spot starting ability on the outside for a 2-year, $20 million deal. They re-signed Nick Bolton. They re-signed Marquise Brown. They franchise tag Trey Smith, obviously, and then trading Joe Thuney. Any thoughts on where the Kansas City Chiefs should go? They've lost certainly a little bit on their defensive line and offensive line. Do you think they'll still make a splash here in free agency?
I think there's a couple of thoughts here for me. One is they have franchise tag Trey Smith, but we have yet to hear about a long-term extension, and that needs to get done. So maybe it was to clear some space for that. I think defensive line depth is a big thing, and I think it's something they'll also attack in the draft. And we have to remember, too, with Justin Reed leaving for New Orleans, Steve Spagnuolo likes to use a lot of different defensive backs, but Reed was a real leader at safety. I wonder if they may go and sign one of these veteran safeties. I mentioned maybe Juan Thornhill comes back, obviously knowing the system from the first time around there. Maybe it's a guy like Julian Blackmon, but right now their two starting safeties would be Jaden Hicks and Brian Cook, and those are two very, very young players, especially Hicks coming off of his rookie year, and usually they like to break those guys in a little bit slower before they put him in that leadership role, except for a handful of guys, say like Trent McDuffie or Nick Bolton early in his career. But I think D-line and safety might start to be an emphasis here beyond also the Trey Smith extension.
Yeah, I'm surprised with as much money as they have currently that they did not bring back Justin Reed. I feel like he's just such a versatile part of that secondary. So I wonder what their plan B is, or maybe plan A. If they were letting him walk anyways, I wonder what their plan A there is for safety. I know they like Jaden Hicks and probably expect him to step into one of those starting spots, but man, it just feels like Kansas City, because I'm going to pull up their depth chart now as well after some of those signings that they've had.
And Shamari Connor plays that flex role for them too, in the nickel spot, in a deep half. He's kind of all over the place as well. It's just a lot, and I mean they rely on young players a lot. It's part of what's made them so good the last couple of years is those young players developing so quickly. But you lose Reed, it just felt like there was times when in that secondary he was kind of the glue that held things together, especially over the middle, right? Kind of making those calls in coverage and being where he needs to be with so much experience. I just think that might be a spot that I look at. Who is it going to be that's that signal caller on the back end every single down, right? Because we've seen Jaden Hicks rotate in. We've seen Shamari Connor kind of rotate in. Brian Cook has a limited role and had the injury in 2023 before coming back last year. I think it feels like you're missing one of those kind of veteran presences there right in the middle of it.
Hughes back in the super chat, which we appreciate the $5 super chat here. Talk about the Chargers again. Chargers fans, I know you're going through it. Like every single time I look at the chat, somebody in all caps is just like, did Joe Ortiz wake up yet? What are the Chargers doing? Why aren't they doing anything? As of right now, where are we with the Chargers? The Chargers have the second most effective cap space in the NFL at $78 million behind only the New England Patriots as it stands right now. He says, Chargers fans still on the ledge here. With Evan Ingram gone, is it just going to be Ladd McConkey and a random fan in the crowd catching passes for Justin Herbert? So we already listed a couple of wide receivers that they might be able to go after. Amari Cooper is still there. Stephon Diggs is still there. Cooper Kupp, I think, is interesting. I don't think they'll bring Keenan Allen back, even though it might be cool and they need it. I don't think they're going to bring him back. Deontay Johnson, he's bounced around so many teams in such a short amount of time. I just don't think he's reliable at this point. Tyler Lockett, Elijah Moore, Mike Williams, again, like I don't think they're going to make that move and bring him back. Brandon Cooks, Noah Brown. I'm just scrolling the available free agents at the wide receiver spot. It's not a lot that you feel great about. So what are the Chargers going to do here at wide receiver for the 2025 season?
We sit here and wonder because so many things are unexpected, and we certainly didn't expect, say, the DK Metcalf situation to go the way it did. But are they maybe still kind of sniffing around the trade market, right? Are they monitoring the Brandon Ayuk situation? Are they monitoring, you mentioned this before, and I don't see it happening, I don't think, but could they be monitoring someone like Chris Olave, right? Or maybe see if that Bengals situation with T. Higgins deteriorates and swoop in and give him something for that, right? So I think that's also something it's been a lot of fun, right? We didn't anywhere near expect Geno Smith to get traded. So I do wonder if that's something that the Chargers are looking into as far as, hey, while everyone else is in on free agency, if we're looking towards the trade market, or even, we keep mentioning them as getting a weapon in the draft, are they a team that could potentially trade up for one that they want? I know we've talked even with them about Colston Loveland, but could it be a Luther Burden that adds something to their offense? Is it do you stay there and go with Matt Golden or Emeka Ibuka? I think, look, as far as what we should tell Chargers fans, just stay patient. Jim Harbaugh's done this for a long, long time, right? He hasn't had a losing season except for a COVID-shortened 2020 at Michigan. He hasn't had a losing season since 2008. So he knows how this is going. He knows what you want, but we're trying to find the right pieces that, again, he's very much the culture guy, right? He's trying to find the right guys that fit in with the culture of his team. So he's not going to bring anybody in any drastic sort of manner at the expense of that, at the expense of what he's building for the long term, because he's trying to build a sustained program, right? So I don't think it's going to be I don't think there should be any need for panic in LA about the Chargers. They're ahead of the curve. We need to remember they're ahead of the curve, and having that cap space is certainly not a hindrance to anything they're trying to do. I know they want to go for it, and look, the AFC is tough. You better build a sustained winner with a good defense and a team that's really good in the trenches. So I think he's still going to take the patient approach about it, and if something comes up that he likes, he's going to strike on it.
Somebody in the chat mentioned George Pickens as a potential spot for
could be a thing.
Chargers.
Yeah.
I like that a lot, actually, especially because the Chargers have a ton of draft picks. Now, they don't have a ton of second or third or fourth round picks, but they've got 4 6th round picks and 2 7th round picks. And so if you're telling the Steelers, hey, we'll give you 86, so we'll give you a 3rd round pick and we'll give you one of these 6th round picks for George Pickens, I'd love that. I think that would be a great move. You could even still bring in Cooper Kupp if you wanted to at that point, and you're just totally revamping the wide receiver room. So I actually like that one a lot. I want to get to Mr. Lighthouse first, who gave us $5 super chat. Shout out to Mr. Lighthouse. He said, who do you see Cooper Kupp going to? We talked about this a little bit earlier in the show, but we could dive in a little bit more deeper here. You have the Patriots. You have the Patriots who are very interested. And you have many other teams as well. I'm curious as to who you guys see or where you see Cooper Kupp going to. I think that the Patriots make a ton of sense. We touched on it kind of at the very top of the show. I wonder if they still think that he's got enough left in the tank to be wide receiver one caliber like in Carolina. I think Carolina could make a lot of sense for them. Again, I believe that the Chargers could make sense for Cooper Kupp. I mean, the Raiders, maybe?
What about... and
Raiders make sense for Cooper Kupp?
The Raiders make sense, and I just thought of one thinking about how they lost another receiver earlier today, and they're pretty much just sitting on... What about the Tennessee Titans? I think go along with Calvin Ridley. We're starting to at least suspect that maybe they're taking Cam Ward with that first overall
good
pick.
vet for Cam Ward?
I mean, I just think because right now I'm looking at the Titans receiving core, and I'm pretty sure it's just Calvin Ridley, and I don't really know what else at this point.
Hey, Van Jefferson, respect it.
Van Jefferson, okay,
respect it.
I respect it. I didn't say. Is that another Gator great? Right?
Yeah, of course.
That's what it is. I knew there was a reason you wanted me to respect. I was like, it comes back. I was like, he's a Gator, isn't he? Of course he is. Okay, Calvin Ridley, Van Jefferson, and then a whole lot of nothing. I actually think Tennessee might make a little bit of sense. Take another veteran flyer. They did it with DeAndre Hopkins a couple of years ago and then shipped him to Kansas City. But that might be a fit too when you look at, they have a tight end need too that maybe they'll address later in the draft. But if we're assuming, and now we're making a lot of assumptions here, but if we're assuming that maybe or maybe not Cam Ward's the quarterback come September, you do need more weapons for him, for sure, too. We've talked a lot about the Titans' offensive line, but somebody like Cooper Kupp coming in as the two behind Calvin Ridley, I don't hate that.
Trevor in the chat says, did Jez drop it? No, he didn't. Before we get to the super chat, I want to recognize some breaking news that we have. DeMarcus Lawrence to the Seattle Seahawks. I kind of love it. I'm not going to lie. 3 years, what was it, 42 mil? Looking at the exact. Yeah, 3 years, $42 million, but it's just $18 million in guaranteed. Our content director, Gordon, in another chat that we have, is basically saying, it's probably like a 2-year, $18 million deal, right? Because there's only $18 million in guarantees. So all of a sudden, that number looks pretty good if you're operating under the fact that that would be a 2-year, $18 million deal. You look at Seattle's defensive line, and it's Byron Murphy the second. It's Leonard Williams, who's coming off one hell of a year in Mike Macdonald's system. Now you got Jerron Reed. You got Mike Morris from Michigan as well, who I think is a nice fit there. And you're throwing in DeMarcus Lawrence. He's not going to be one of those stand-up edge rushers that Uchenna Nwosu and Boye Mafe are. He's going to be one of the hand-in-the-dirt, 3-down defensive linemen. But I like this, man. I like the strength. It's DeMarcus Lawrence. He's not quite what he used to be, but, dude, I actually really love this fit with him in Seattle.
Yeah, I think with the injuries he's had in recent years, but, when he's healthy, he can still give you something. I think he's perfect for more of this rotational role now, right? He's good. He's about to be 33 years old next month, and we're only 1 year removed. I think a big part of this is from a 92.2 run defense grade in 2023. I mean, that may have led all edge defenders that season. So does he quite have what he did once in the pass rush game? No, but I think Lawrence, especially on early downs, when you're talking about him and Boye Mafe on the other side on early downs and run defense, it's going to be hard to break contain on Seattle. And then you talk about, look, they re-signed Ernest Jones. They have Devin Witherspoon on the outside and sometimes in the slot who will come down and help in run defense. I think they're really putting that together after the last couple of years. It's been kind of subpar. So if they get Lawrence in here, you kept Jones, you get another year of development out of Byron Murphy. Dealt with some injuries last year, some minor stuff that kind of slowed him down. I think you'd be talking about a really fun front seven because, again, we know Mike Macdonald's a defensive coach. He's built several great defenses throughout his career. I think this is now where he's going to start talking about, everybody, the focus has been on Sam Darnold and what's wrong with the offense, and we don't have receivers, and we don't have guards and any of this, but you're talking about a guy who wants to build a complementary football team, right? And for him, that's going to start on the defensive side, and he'll worry about receiver and offensive line as we get deeper into the offseason. But I think he's really trying to build a team with balance, and DeMarcus Lawrence really helps him with that, I think, especially in run defense.
I agree with everything that you said. Steve in the chat said Dez dropped it according to how they ruled the Calvin Johnson ruling at that point in NFL history. Don't care. Des did not drop it. We got a couple of more super chats that I want to make sure that we get to. Not sure how much longer we'll kind of keep the stream going. Maybe if NFL news keeps breaking, we'll keep rolling with it. But I did want to get to a couple more super chats before we do that. Got a question for all the parents out there. What's your child's success look like for you? Right? Maybe it's your kids getting to travel the world. Maybe it's them having a great job, a beautiful house, just a life in it that they're just very comfortable with, that they love. Whatever their dreams are, big or small, a kid's investment account from Fabric by Gerber Life can help them achieve that. Fabric by Gerber Life was designed by parents for parents to make it easy to plan for and manage your family's financial path. With a kid's investment account from Fabric, you can start investing in your child's future today. Kids can't invest while they're minors, but this kids investment account specifically allows you to invest on their behalf, giving their investments more time to grow. Starts with just $20. There's no contributions limits to it, tax advantages. Funds are SIPC insured up to $500,000, plus there's no commission fees. It's just a low, flat monthly maintenance fee. It can basically be used for anything. When they're kids, it's tutors, it's music classes, it's tuition, it's sports. When they're older, it's buying a first car, helping them buy their first house, helping them start a business, whatever they need help with, again, to achieve those dreams, both big and small. Join the thousands of parents who trust Fabric to protect their family. Start investing in your child's future today at meetfabric.com/PFFNFL. That's meetfabric.com/PFFNFL, meetfabric.com/PFFNFL. These portfolios are managed by Fort Washington Investment Advisors Incorporated. Additional services provided by Apex Clearing Corporation. All investing is subject to risk. You can learn more at meetfabric.com. All right, we got a couple more super chats. Want to hit here. Who's this? BK's asking, are the Niners in full rebuild? We talked about this a little bit when we were going over the Niners moves in the show earlier this morning. I don't know about full rebuild, but it does have to be a different identity for this team, right? Because you're losing Aaron Banks, you're losing Kyle Juszczyk, you're losing Deebo Samuel, Malik Collins, Leonard Floyd, Dre Greenlaw, Charvarius Ward, Talanoa Hufanga. All those guys are gone. It's just one offseason and all of those guys are gone. So the core guys, Nick Bosa, Fred Warner, Brock Purdy, Trent Williams, those guys, Christian McCaffrey, Brandon Ayuk, like those guys, George Kittle, those guys are still there. So I don't want to say it's a full rebuild, because anytime you can list off as much talent as I just did, it's not going to feel like a full rebuild. But the identity of this team is going to be a lot different, because they had to make some cap sacrifices knowing what they're about to pay Brock Purdy if they are going to give him that extension, which it sounds like they're going to. So I don't think the Niners are going to be in full rebuild. That's not how I see it. They're too talented to really call it that. But I do think it's going to be a little bit of an identity shift. What do you think about where the Niners are at, Dalton?
Yeah, I think 2025 is kind of a transition year. I think it feels like they're kind of, I know they have a couple expensive contracts on them, Trent Williams, Brandon Ayuk, Nick Bosa, even George Kittle, and obviously Brock Purdy coming. That's really going to be the theme of the next year or two with San Francisco, is working around the whatever amount of money that Brock Purdy is about to get in an extension, right? And you're talking about, look, I think in the last year or two, they've done a pretty good job of it, right? When you talk about drafting guys like Dominic Puni, Ricky Pearsall, Jair Brown, Renardo Green, right? When you're drafting good young players like that, you can sustain an expensive quarterback. I think this draft really is a very, very big one for them, especially in the trenches. If they're going to attack the trenches the way that I think they are going to, especially early on, that's big, because you're really transitioning into this part of this era for the 49ers where, okay, let's say Brock Purdy's making $45 to $50 million a year. You have to find value elsewhere with young players that can offset that, right? So I think that's going to become the focus. There will be questions even next offseason about, say, Trent Williams and how much longer he's going to play, or Christian McCaffrey and, with his injuries and what's going on there.
I agree.
We've already heard Brandon Ayuk trade rumors even after he signed this extension this past season. So that's really what it's coming to be about, is building this team now, because even before, the core of the team was built through the draft, right? Obviously, Purdy with the last pick in 2022, but you talk about Nick Bosa being homegrown, Brandon Ayuk, Deebo Samuel, Fred Warner, Dre Greenlaw, so many homegrown players that have been so good for them for so many years. They have to get back to that approach, right? They obviously, look, they made 2 Super Bowls. They lost them both by a razor-thin margin. It's unfortunate, but now you have to sustain. Now you have to build a sustainable winner, I should say, and that comes with drafting young players. So I don't think we're going to see much more of a splash from them in free agency. I think the focus for the next year or two is really going to be about building this team from within again.
Slim's asking, what moves can the Falcons make in free agency that will be effective here? So to recap a little bit about of what the Atlanta Falcons did, they signed Leonard Floyd to a 1-year, $10 million deal. How about the edge rush room? They signed Divine Diablo as well to a 2-year, $14 million deal to get a little bit more speed, get a little bit more dynamic at the linebacker level. They signed cornerback Mike Ford to a 2-year, $4 million deal, so a smaller deal there. They re-signed Mike Hughes, one of their outside corners, to a 3-year, $18 million deal. They had that extension with Jake Matthews as well, which happened, I believe, 4 or 5 days ago. And then they did release Grady Jarrett, so a little bit of a changing there. Don't have Justin Simmons anymore at the safety level either. Now, they didn't officially bring him back, but they didn't officially, I guess, like, he could still come back, is what I'm saying. Now, I don't know if he's going to, because it feels like they would have resigned him at this point anyways, but those are some of the moves and how different it's going to look for the Atlanta Falcons. They also lose Drew Dalton because he goes from their starting center over to Chicago. Is there any move left? Now, when I look at the Falcons, got to look up how much money they got here. Not a lot. Effective cap space currently $5.3 million, so they don't have a lot of moves to make here, which is $5.3 million, because you do want to have some in the tank going into the season for, you go into training camp, guys get hurt, you want to be able to sign different players, all that kind of good stuff. So it's not a ton, but do you think the Falcons are going to be active at all whatsoever from this point on?
It would have to be in the real, you mentioned it, because the Kirk Cousins contract kind of holds him up from making any more big signings. It's really going to have to be kind of in the bargain bin, right? I mean, I think about if there was somebody in that $4, $5, $6 million range. I think about, I'm looking just at guys in front of me. Dante Fowler Jr. might make some sense. Maybe as a veteran corner, maybe they're the team that gives Stephon Gilmore a 1-year contract this year, right? Somebody like that. Those veteran players looking for 1-year deals that they can fit in the budget, but they're really in a tight spot until next year when they can get out of the Kirk Cousins contract. I think they're going to rely on some of those younger defensive linemen. I think about a guy even like Braylon Trice, who they took in the 3rd round last year and had a season-ending injury before it even started. So that's somebody who could be a valuable piece for him. But I think when you talk about the defensive line and at corner, there's probably another name or two they could sign on a cheaper 1-year contract. But you're not going to get any big moves with where their cap situation is right now.
Yeah, I agree. I just don't know how much they're going to be able to literally afford. Rob G as well with the super chat. Salute to you, Rob G. Is there a world where Shedeur Sanders falls to round 2 in Pittsburgh? If you ask Dalton, he's going to tell you no. Not a chance in hell. If you ask me, I'm going to tell you absolutely. There's absolutely a chance where... Now, I don't know about 50. I feel like you probably have to trade up, because I feel like if Shedeur is going to make it to the second round, it's probably beginning of the second round. He's going to go within the first 10 picks. He's just not going to be off the board long. But I genuinely believe that Shedeur is more of a late first, early second round pick than he is a top 10 pick. But when we do mock drafts still, like we did on this very channel a couple days ago, Dalton took him at number 3 overall. So I think there absolutely is a chance where Pittsburgh could have the opportunity to draft Shedeur Sanders not in the first round. But you would probably disagree with me, correct?
Here's what I'll say. I actually don't think he gets out of the first round, even if he drops a bit. Here's what I think some of the scenarios are. One, I still think he's very much on the table to go to the Giants at 3. I do. I don't at this point. I don't know what other. I know you're going to tell me you don't want to force it for a certain guy or this or that or the other. And look, teams. I think the talk lately has been about how much anonymous sources don't like Shedeur Sanders, but there are some that really, really like him, right? And it wouldn't shock me at all if the Giants was one. 1 is the Giants. 2, I still look at those 6-7 spots with the Raiders and the Jets and have to think they would at least think about it, especially the Jets, because the Fields contract is not prohibitive at all for them taking a quarterback. 3, with regards to the Steelers, if he gets to 21, I think the Steelers are taking him. And I know there's been talks about Aaron Rodgers, but
I can believe that.
Yeah,
I can believe that. I'm not totally opposed to that. I don't think that's illogical.
And 4, there's again an ideal trade down team in the Minnesota Vikings there at 24, right? They only have 4 picks in this draft. I think that would become a scenario where the Vikings trading down and out of 24, let's say into the 30s or early 40s, they might be trading down with a team into that range. Maybe the Raiders, maybe the Jets, they're both in kind of that range right there where they could come up to 24, go, okay, we got through this Shedeur wave of him dropping through everybody that could have taken him in the first. Let's jump up to 24 and take him. I still think one way or the other he's going to go in the first round. If it's later, it could be Pittsburgh at 21, or it could be somebody trading into the first round 24. Let's say 24 with the Vikings, maybe 27 with Baltimore, 29 with Washington. I still think there are going to be plenty of options because eventually look, so if you don't think he's the best quarterback in the class, most people think he's certainly the second best one, right? I'm pretty sure of that. I think he's still going to be a hot commodity even the further he drops. Even if he gets into the 20s, somebody's going to get in there and take him, or it could just be Pittsburgh straight up at 21. I don't think there's any way he's getting to, 50? We said somewhere in the 50s. I don't think there's any way he's getting there. I think the lowest he would go is somewhere into the 20s, maybe the 30s. I don't think he drops all the way out. I think he still goes in the first round somewhere. There'd be a trade up from one of those teams in the 30s, but it's entirely possible. Again, I still think the leading scenario is, he goes third overall, the Giants.
Given that the Giants have literally nothing right now, it is hard to argue against that. I do think the Giants are kind of screwed now. I think that they're going to convince themselves that Shedeur could be a pick for them at number 3, whether that's the case or not. So I don't want to say that that's impossible.
And they may be right or wrong on it. I'm not going to disagree with it. I'm a big fan of Shedeur. I think he may be even the most ready to step in on day one and start for whoever. And again, I have nothing against Cam Ward. I think he's fantastic too. But I just wonder if anything behind the scenes with Shedeur is being overblown by a handful of scouts that don't like him, right? And again, am I saying, on a big board, is he in the top 5 up there with Abdul Carter and Travis Hunter and those guys? No. Is he on the level of Caleb Williams and Jaden Daniels last year? No. But that's where we're at. And teams are going to take quarterbacks ahead of maybe even the big board projection, because if you don't have a quarterback at all, like the Giants right now, well, then you're just not going to win football games. That's the facts, and that's where it's kind of the same spot to me we've backed ourselves into with Tennessee, where it's, okay, you've made some moves on the O-line, and you have Calvin Ridley, and you're building this front 7, but you have Will Levis. You can't walk into next season with Will Levis.
It is very funny how the 3 teams that are the most desperate at quarterback, who pick 1, 2, and 3, did nothing.
Yeah.
I mean, the Titans did nothing. The Giants did nothing. Now, not for lack of trying. They tried, but they have nothing right now at quarterback. Cleveland has Kenny Pickett. I guess I shouldn't say nothing. They traded for Kenny Pickett, so they did do something at the quarterback position. But essentially, they're all having the same exact conversations they were a week ago. And I think that makes the entire quarterback conversation very interesting. So I would tell you that there is a chance that Shedeur could get into the second round, or at least within range for the Steelers to either draft him in the first round, or they could trade up after their first round selection at number 21 to draft him after they pick there. But I just don't know. I can tell you what I think about a player and where I think that he should go. But like you mentioned, if you're a team and you don't have a quarterback, it does not matter. You basically have to take one. And I don't know if we have seen a draft in a long, long time where we have 3 teams picking at the very top this desperate. Like this desperate for a quarterback. Tennessee cannot trot Will Levis out there next year.
I will say,
Giants. Who do the Giants have? Who's on the Giants roster at quarterback right now?
Tommy DeVito, and that's it.
That's crazy, is it not?
No, it absolutely is. See, I think of the 3 though, and they may be the 3 most desperate, but I think the Browns, it sounds funny because of their timeline and just where their team is at. They're not going to compete until the Watson contract is off the books anyway. I don't actually think the Browns are that desperate to take. If they were to get Cam Ward, if they like Cam Ward that much and he gets by Tennessee, maybe they would take him. But I think they're the least desperate of the 3. When you look at the timeline of what we're looking at here, look, Brian Callahan's going into year 2 in Tennessee with quarterback as one of the most obvious weaknesses in all of football on his team. Mm-hmm. And we already know the kind of semi-mandate that Brian Dable and Joe Shane have to find a long-term solution and win right now. I think the Browns are the least desperate. If Cam is there, if the Titans say take Abdul Carter or Travis Hunter, I think they would take Cam, but I think it's more likely that you see the Browns maybe take Travis Hunter. I don't think they would double up with Abdul Carter with Myles Garrett, but maybe. I mean, maybe they go the Steelers route and just try to win with their pass rush and not much else. But the Giants, the problem for the Giants is now they're the most vulnerable. Aaron Rodgers, it seems like, doesn't want to go there. They seem to not have too much of an interest in Russell Wilson, although he's visiting. It's funny that he's visiting Cleveland before he even visits the Giants. That's kind of odd. If you get in a situation where the Browns don't let him leave the building, well, now what do the Giants have? You still stuck on Tommy DeVito come this weekend, right? It feels almost like they've backed themselves into a corner with this. Again, if I had to put money on it, for as much as we may or may not agree with it, I think Shedeur Sanders is going to get taken 3rd overall. I do. I think the Giants have left themselves almost no choice. Because what else? I mean, what are your other solutions? Even if you walk into next year with Russell Wilson, okay, then what? I mean, it's just you're just spinning your wheels.
I'm with you, 100%. Let's catch up on some, before we get to the next super chat, let's catch up on some signings that have happened since we started that rant there. Denzel Perryman signing with the Chargers on a 1-year deal, so they get Denzel Perryman back there. Another linebacker on the move. The Cowboys finishing stages of a trade for Titans linebacker Kenneth Murray. So the Cowboys, all of a sudden today, they go get Jack Sanborn, they go get Kenneth Murray. So I guess they're okay with those guys being their starting 2 linebackers. I wonder if that takes linebacker off the board for them now at number 12. Do they feel good about it? The Indianapolis Colts and running back Khalil Herbert reached an agreement on a 1-year contract, so Khalil Herbert going there. And here's a popular name, somebody that we have brought up throughout the shows over the last couple of days. Kevin Zeitler, the Pro Bowl guard, signing a 1-year, $9 million deal with the Tennessee Titans. So we assume that he's going to play that right guard spot since Peter Skoronski plays left guard next to J.C. Latham. You already have Lloyd Cushenberry, who you signed, I believe, last year as well. So now Kevin Zeitler playing at that right guard spot, and then you're just trying to figure out, hey, is Nicholas Petit-Frere enough at that right tackle spot? And so we will see. But any thoughts on any of those moves there?
That last point is actually moot. Also, you have to remember, too, they signed Dan Moore Jr. for a lot more money than we thought he was
right.
getting. So
you're right. I totally forgot.
The assumption, I think, now is that you're going to get J.C. Latham back on that right side now. So it's going to be from left to right, Moore, Skoronski, Cushenberry, Zeitler, Latham. That seems like the front 5 that they have going for them in Tennessee right now, which, again, if we're signing veteran pass protectors and we're just kind of reading tea leaves here, does it kind of sort of feel like they're setting up to take quarterback first overall?
Yeah.
I mean, I don't want to say formality because we're 6 weeks away, but this really feels like we're starting to build this thing a little bit for Cam Ward to at least have some sort of success in Tennessee his first year, right?
Yeah. I mean, they're trying, but it's
still going to be a job. I mean, and look, if they go and sign
Calvin Ridley and
Gator
Great Van Jefferson. No, you failed the test. You failed the test.
No, you're right. Listen, it's not as much a reflex. I have the FAU legend part. When you bring up Trey Hendrickson or Devin Singletary, one of those, Azeez Al-Shire, I have FAU legend as the reflex in my head. It's different than Gator Great. It's a whole different thing.
I have another super chat from AMG. Sorry it took so long for us to get to the super chat. Obviously went on a tangent there with the quarterback position, so shout out to you. Appreciate the super chat. Thoughts on DeAndre Hopkins to the Baltimore Ravens, and is there anybody else currently sitting in free agency that you think that they should be targeting? We've already kind of talked a little bit about, potentially edge rusher and defensive line. They could certainly look into that a little bit with some veteran guys available, Calais Campbell, some of those veteran edge rushers, Darius Smith, Von Miller, Azeez Ojulari, guys like that I think could make sense for them. But Hopkins to the Ravens, we touched on it a little bit earlier when we were doing the show at 10 a.m. this morning, but both of us like this move, and we like this move because if you're approaching this thinking that DeAndre Hopkins is going to be the DeAndre Hopkins that he was with the Texans, he's not. He is what he needs to be here with the Ravens, and that is simply a big name that you just have to pay attention to, that you just can't quite ignore. And I think that in and of itself opens things up for the rest of the playmakers that is in their passing attack. You don't need him to be wide receiver 1. You don't need him to be the best red zone threat that you have on your team. You just need him to be DeAndre Hopkins, even in his current state, because even who he is in his age, he is not a wide receiver that you could just leave wide open. You can't. And I think just his presence alone opens things up a fraction for Zay Flowers and for Rashad Bateman and for Isaiah Likely and for Mark Andrews. And I think it's just a little bit of that veteran presence that could mean a lot for this team, something that they've tried to do before, but I think Hopkins could honestly play that role pretty well. So understanding what he's bringing to the table, I like it. I do.
Yeah, no, I totally agree. I think, we talked about this earlier. I think it's about winning enough one-on-one battles to make you respect him enough to take the pressure off of Flowers, to take the pressure off the tight ends, to take a little bit of pressure off the run game, right? And I think he can still do that. Is he going to go out there, like you mentioned, put up 1,400 yards? No, that's Zay Flowers' job. But I think schematically, between being able to have now 3 receivers on the field and him, Rashad Bateman, and Zay Flowers, or even in 2 receiver sets, just allowing Zay Flowers to move move around the formation and be the super versatile player that he can be. It could be vertically, it can be in the screen game, it could be over the middle, on the outside. Flowers can do so many different things as long as the entire defense doesn't have all their eyes on him, right? And I think Hopkins is a guy who, especially one-on-one, can make a defense avert their eyes in that direction.
Steve said, just you watch, the Green Bay Packers will leave him alone and get a 100-yard performance on the year.
It's tough.
Come on.
Tough.
We don't need that negativity.
We still
time. This is the time where we're buying hope.
Speaking of that, we still have the Jair Alexander trade kind of rumor floating out there. We've heard nothing on that
looming?
all week. I guess looming, but it's been kind of silent all week on the Jair Alexander front too.
Well, doesn't his contract suck?
Kind of, yeah.
I mean, he's hurting his contract.
I would take his contract. If you handed his contract to me, I would take it in a heartbeat. But, by his standards and salary cap standards, sure. I would take it.
You think he could play corner better than Jair Alexander?
I would try.
That's not what I asked.
What are you, Yoda? I can't even do or do not? Like, what's going on here? What is this?
Yeah, basically saying, are you worth Jair Alexander's contract to play cornerback in the National Football League?
I am worth Jair Alexander's contract in theory. That's the best I have. I've got nothing. We're trying. It's been a long few days, You
could probably drink more bourbon on the rocks than Jair Alexander could. So
well, no, I went to Cheers, but this is
I was going to say
this
don't
is
be
water.
doing
No,
that.
I went to Cheers, but this is water. Here, it's water. Say, don't worry. If I was doing it out of a cup like this, I'd have a problem.
If you were going off on beautifully worded and well-researched rants the way that you were, and that was bourbon in the cup, I would be even more impressed, honestly, and somebody would need to sponsor the program. No, I do think it's a little complicated here because Jair Alexander, he's 28 years old this upcoming season. He's basically $25 million on the cap this year. He's $27 million on the cap next year. So I don't think anybody is trading for his contract. Given how much time he has missed from injury, nobody's trading for his contract. So I think that everybody right now is waiting for the Packers to cut him. I guess when's the post June 1 trade? Let's see.
Oh, you're saying maybe somebody does it in the summer?
If the Packers were to post June 1 him, they have $7 million in dead money, but it's $17 million on the cap that they save. So obviously it's much more advantageous for the Packers to be able to do that. But then is somebody trading for the remainder of that contract? Because if they're doing that, they would basically be saying, okay, well, we need to sign you to at least a 2-year extension to really try to move around that money because we don't want Jair Alexander to be $27 million on the cap against us. I just wonder if the Packers are going to have to cut him.
I'm looking at it's a similar number for a post June 1 cut. You know what I think? Here, should I just make a full tilt prediction?
Somebody say you can't post June 1 in a trade. You can only do that in a cut.
Yeah, well, you would the salary cap works the same, but you actually would have to trade him after June
that's
1st,
what I'm
right?
saying.
So
you
like,
hold on. You would literally hold on.
You
to
can
him
designate 2 guys to post June 1 cut. I don't know if the Packers have done that already, but he could be a post June 1 cut and cut now. I would lay a prediction out here like this. You know what I have for you? Here's what I think. Post June, the leverage is gone for the Packers. Post June 1 cut, save the money. Jair Alexander, the Rams.
Yeah, I mean, I think that goes along with the Rams' MO for sure.
But
the chat's telling me they would keep some dead money. I understand that, and then only $17 million would go to the new team. But like that is still a lot to pay for a hurt corner. Like I don't think a team is going to want to do that. Certainly the Packers don't want to do it at the $25 million price tag, but I don't even think the new team is going to want to do it at 17 and then having that extra year as well. So
most of the healthy corners,
I don't think they're going to want to do that.
Most of the healthy corners that have been signed in free agency have been signed for less than that.
Oh, yeah, 100%. Easy.
Right. All right, can I throw something out here that's been on my mind lately? I'm going to switch gears on you real quick.
No.
Can we talk? Oh, no? Okay. Well, I'll just take the $18 million to drink more water then.
Yeah, go ahead. No, go ahead. Go ahead.
Can we roll back on the Dallas
Hold
Cowboys?
on, Drew is saying not of his talent. He's hurt.
Yeah.
That's the thing, Drew. I also agree. Jair is awesome when he is healthy.
Yeah.
But the Packers wouldn't be getting rid of him if it wasn't for the fact that he was hurt. Anyways, yeah. Sorry, we're going up. Go ahead. Go off your
You're
rant.
good. Can I roll in on just something I noticed here with the Dallas Cowboys real quick?
Sure. Yeah.
Is their strategy just, hey, let's just get as many former first-round picks as possible? Because I've got Solomon Thomas,
Okay.
I've got Peyton Turner, I've got Kyer Elam, and now I've got Kenneth Murray. Is that just where we're at? Is we're just going to go get a bunch of guys that used to be first-rounders and bank that they're all finally going to hit, or what?
How many total do they have on the team?
Say again?
How many total first-rounders do they have on, let's just say, their defense?
Oh, their entire team. Let's see.
Because wasn't Malik Hooker a first-rounder?
Malik Hooker was a first-rounder, I believe.
So they have Malik Hooker.
Trayvon Diggs. So let's see. I'm counting.
Diggs.
Mozzie
Parsons.
Smith. Parsons, too.
Solomon Thomas. Kyer Elam. Peyton Turner. Is that it? Do we got 6?
1, 2. Oh, no,
6 former
Trayvon Diggs.
first-rounders?
I'm wrong. Trayvon Diggs was a second-round pick. Sorry.
Oh, damn.
So-
Wait, when was Andrew Booth picked?
Was he a first? Did Minnesota take him in the first round?
Wasn't he close? Oh, no, he's a second-rounder. He was a second-rounder. He went pick 42.
So I'm looking at
they
Mozzie, Parsons, Thomas, Turner, Elam, and the fourth one I just forgot who it was. Kenneth Murray. 6? I'm getting 6, I think.
Did you say Malik Hooker?
And Malik Hooker. Okay, 7.
7.
Is
We got
that
7 former first-round picks.
But 4 of them picked up in the last 2 days. Is this just what we're going for here? Is just draft? We're just going straight draft status and figure it out from there. They're all high draft picks. Some of them got to pan out eventually.
If we go to the offensive side of the football, we're also adding CeeDee Lamb,
Tyler Guyton, Tyler Smith.
Brandon Cooks.
Cook's a first rounder?
Yeah, wasn't he?
I thought he went in the second.
Or did he just get traded for a bunch of first-round picks?
I think he got traded for 1 million first-round picks, but I thought he was actually a second rounder. I could be wrong on that.
Oh, he was picked in the first round.
Because that was that year with.
Yeah, he was picked 20. He was picked 20 in the first round.
He was picked that high, man. Because was that the same year with Mike Evans and Sammy Watkins and all those guys, right?
Don't you ever test me.
Okay. All right, that's your territory. I got you.
2014 was Mike Evans, Sammy Watkins, Odell Beckham Jr., Brandon Cooks, Kelvin Benjamin, salute.
What a receiver.
Marquise Lee, Jordan Matthews, Vanderbilt great. Oh my God, I forgot Paul Richardson went in the second round, pick 45. And then Devontae Adams went pick 53. Incredible. And then Allen Robinson went 61. Jarvis Landry, 63.
What a draft.
It's actually pretty sick wide receiver draft.
What a receiver draft. I forgot Cooks went that high. All right, that's on me. But yeah, that just feels like that's what the Cowboys are getting at here, is they're just going to load up on former first-round picks and see which one of them hits the proverbial ceiling, I guess, especially on defense now.
Oh, Coy let us know that Cooks is a free agent, so technically he's not on the team. Whatever. I still saw him on the depth chart.
Oh, that's right, because he's a free agent now, isn't he? Okay.
Yeah.
Well, then I was right. That's not one of them. Cool. Makes sense.
All right, any final players on the available list that you want to shout out, interested to see where they go, have sort of a guess about where they would go? Somebody said Nick Chubb to the Chargers earlier in the show.
Not with Najee already there now. I don't think so.
No? I think backfield?
I think it'll be one veteran, Najee, and then I think they're going to draft one on day 2.
Travion Henderson, maybe?
Travion Henderson. Quinshon makes some sense, I think.
Quinshon Judkins.
Maybe they go a little bit later. Maybe a Devin Neal, somebody like that. Just a thought.
Jameis Winston, where do you think he ends up?
Jameis Winston. You know, I almost want to say, with everything else that's happening around it and Daniel Jones leaving, I almost want to say Minnesota. They need a backup still. and they're kind of running out of options. I don't know if you saw Marcus Mariota went back to the Commanders too, so that wouldn't be one for them. I'll take just a guess and say Minnesota, because it doesn't seem like Cleveland wants him back. It doesn't seem like Pittsburgh's interested. It doesn't seem like the Giants are interested. I think the Vikings need a solid backup, a guy who they can trust to spot start just in case McCarthy's not ready by the time the season comes around. I'll say the Vikings. Jameis Winston.
I don't hate it. I feel like a good spot for him would be Atlanta, but not as long as Kirk Cousins is still there.
Yeah, no.
I don't really know where else he would go. Wouldn't go to the Jets. Wouldn't go to Jacksonville. New England's got Joe Milton, the GOAT.
Well, why not Jacksonville? I mean, Jacksonville could use a backup. Did they sign a backup? No, they signed Nick Mullins, I think.
Yeah, they signed Mullins.
You know who's floating out there, actually, that's not getting talked about, who I thought did actually a pretty good job when he had to fill in last season, was Mac Jones, too.
You're a Mac Jones guy? Look, you're saying in Jacksonville.
I thought last year in Jacksonville. Well, I believe they're the ones who signed Nick Mullins, so Jones may not be back in Jacksonville. But I think he's somebody. If a team is looking for a backup, I don't see any reason not to pick up Mac Jones if you're looking for another one of those $6 to $8 million guys.
I think Mac Jones getting a little bit of just the hometown, just like motivation worked in Jacksonville. I don't know how much it's going to work anywhere else, but I don't hate it in Jacksonville. I agree with you. Anybody else? We shouting at anybody else? I think Dietrich Wise is actually an underrated player right now that's as a free agent.
How about Mike Hilton? I think what about Mike Hilton, too? We were talking about North Division.
Where's Mike Hilton going?
Mike, yeah, I would think about Mike. You know what team I might like for Mike Hilton? And I know he's been all around the rest of that division, but I think maybe the Baltimore Ravens. Move Marlon Humphrey back to the outside and get Mike Hilton going in there in the slot.
I could dig it.
I think that's an idea I've had, because corner is like loosely a need for the Ravens, depending on what kind and where they're going to play Marlon Humphrey next year. We know they made the adjustment to the slot down the stretch last year, and he was really good there. But I assume they want to put him back outside, and if they're going to prioritize slot corner, maybe somebody like Mike Hilton on a 1 or 2 year deal fits in their defense, especially as well as he plays the run.
I actually like that. I actually like that move. I'm a big fan of it. I didn't think of Mike Hilton in Baltimore, but I actually like it a lot. Fortifying the slot, giving them whatever gives them a little bit more Marlon Humphrey flexibility. Honestly, it's the Kyle Hamilton flexibility that we would all search for there, that we would want. All right, folks. We appreciate you joining the chat. This has been a lot of fun. Been a lot of fun talking to these free agents. Obviously, we talked about it a little bit this morning. Appreciate everybody. If you guys watched this morning and this afternoon, we love you. You're the best. Thank you so much for hanging out with us, having a lot of fun talking about these free agents. This is one of the most fun times of year because it's just so much change. It's this guy in this system, and it's just a lot of like, ooh, what if these things happened? And so we've obviously talked a lot about what could happen, some of the breaking news of these players officially signing with teams. Over the next couple of days, we're going to be back with you with some live shows, but we're also going to give you some one-off videos explaining just why we love certain players for certain teams. So again, if you are not subscribed to the channel, please do so. We're going to have a lot of post-free agency content for you, and then over the next week or so, we'll start to blend it into NFL draft coverage as well. What do all these signings not only mean for the scheme as it stands today, but what your NFL team is going to do when it comes to 2025 NFL draft. So until then, I'm Trevor Sikkema. That's Dalton Wasserman saying thank you guys so much for watching and listening to the PFF NFL show. We'll see you guys next time.